The Raptors have been going through a bit of an identity crisis. The organization has finally turned the page on the last dregs of the championship roster and embraced a new timeline, headed by a new coach, new-ish management, and a new star duo to lead them into their new era. But branding-wise, the team is stuck. The We the North campaign is 12 years old, and despite complaints from fans, the unpopular chevron jerseys are going on year 6. The combination of these two things makes it feel like the franchise has one foot in the past. But honestly, I kind of respect it. It would be easy for the Raptors to rebrand and visually look like a new team. Teams do that every year, but Toronto is taking the opposite approach. They are proving they are a new team through their play on the court, and in doing so are forging a real team identity, one that can't be taken off. There are 30 teams in the NBA, and each one has a distinct name, color scheme, jersey, and logo. Although, logos are getting less and less unique every year. Okay, can we just stop with the minimalism shit? Ooh, it's a basketball. We get it, man, okay? Bring back this little dude. He's cool as shit. All those elements combine to make up part of a team's identity. But apart from selling merchandise, there's not that much importance to it. And at the end of the day, it's just branding. The real essence of a team's identity is much deeper than that. And surprisingly, only a few teams have a real established identity. The Toronto Raptors have not been one of those teams. At least not over the last 5 seasons. Because in the wake of their championship, they've undergone a massive overhaul, resulting in a bit of an identity crisis. But this year, something's different. They're halfway through the season and just one game back from second in the Eastern Conference. To say they've exceeded expectations would be a huge understatement. So what is it? What is so different about the Raptors this season? Well, it all comes down to that word I mentioned earlier, identity. And I have reason to believe that the Raptors have finally found theirs. Identity. The distinguishing characteristic or personality of an individual or organization. Essentially, what makes you, you? For most people, this question takes some time to work through, and it usually involves some trial and error. Well, that process is no different for an NBA team. Players and coaches will cycle through until something clicks. Sometimes an identity is formed by a master plan, and sometimes by accident. But the key here is when you find something that works, you roll with it. It's an underrated aspect of team building. Typically, the focus is on talent acquisition. How do you stack the most talent possible on your roster? But that's only half the equation. And I would argue it's the less important of the two halves. Let me give you an example. The 2024 New Orleans Pelicans, a roster containing Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram, CJ McCollum, Trey Murphy III. There's a lot of talent. And they won 49 games in a tough Western Conference. It was the second best win percentage in franchise history. But can you honestly tell me what the identity of that team was? Personally, I can't think of anything positive. So when that season resulted in an early first-round exit, I really wasn't too surprised. Before we go too deep into this, it's important to separate identity from gimmicks. The Sacramento Kings Light the Beam team, in my opinion, was a gimmick. Sure, it galvanized the fan base and it was very fun to watch, but it wasn't emblematic of a unique play style, nor does it conjure up any memories of the team's identity. When I say light the beam, you probably picture the beam itself, not a specific style of play. Conversely, everyone remembers the Showtime Lakers, or the Bad Boy Pistons, or even the Lob City Clippers. These are timeless examples of teams that are able to carve out a unique identity by exploiting a play style that only they could master. These teams were trendsetters who used their dominance in a specific style of play to bend other teams to their will. Whether you wanted to or not, when you played the Bad Boy Pistons, they set the tone of the game. This type of dominance is what every team strives for, and if you can't come across it organically, it pays to look at someone else's page. And who better to copy than the two most successful teams from last season? It's been said that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, and if you follow the NBA, you're well aware that it's a copycat league. Some teams are trendsetters, and other teams observe the trends and do their best to mimic what works. For the longest time, the Toronto Raptors prided themselves on being trendsetters. It was an innate characteristic of the Masai Ujiri experience. But the thing about leading is the path ahead is unknown, and you're likely to have some pitfalls along the way. Project 6ix9ine is a great example of this. The Raptors were praised for the novel idea of just collecting as many long, versatile forwards as possible, believing that this was the next wave in basketball. But the success was limited, and the experiment exposed some flaws with the strategy, allowing imitators to learn from their mistakes and execute the vision more successfully. Clearly, sometimes it's better to follow than it is to lead, and that's where I think this year's Raptors squad is finding success. And what better teams to imitate than last year's finals opponents? The Oklahoma City Thunder and the Indiana Pacers both had their own distinct playstyles, and the collision of the two resulted in a very entertaining finals matchup. Let's start with Indiana. The 2025 Pacers were known for two things: a lightning-fast run-and-gun transition game and the playmaking of their star player Tyrese Halliburton. The juxtaposition of these two elements resulted in a play style that broke opposing defenses wide open with their speed and ball movement. Their identity was to outrun their opponents and force them to match their pace. The Oklahoma City Thunder, on the other hand, relied on an aggressive swarming defense that progressively wore their opponents down by utilizing their roster of gifted two-way players. The other pillar of their identity was of course MVP Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, whose shot-making abilities forced opponents to either double him or foul him. In short, Shai is a bucket and damn near unstoppable. Pair him with their dominant defense, and you get an NBA champion. So where does that leave this year's Raptor squad in the equation? Well, ironically, right in the middle. Some teams' identities are formed by setting a trend. Others are made by following one. Or in the Raptors' case, two. Stick with me here. The 2026 Raptors are in many ways an amalgamation of the best characteristics of last year's finals teams. Don't believe me? Let's look at some numbers. Let's start with the areas where this year's Raptors team has been most successful. They have a top 4 fast break offense, a top 4 fast break defense, have a top 5 defensive rating, that is third in total deflections. Last season, the Pacers scored 26.2 points per game in transition on 22.5 possessions. This year's Raptors squad is putting up 27.8 points per game in transition on 24.7 possessions. I'm no mathematician, but I think that's more. Having a more aggressive fast break offense than a finals team that built their whole identity around that playstyle is an accomplishment in itself, but the Raptors didn't stop there. They saw the Thunder's smothering defense and wanted to join the party. This season, the Raptors are forcing 20.3 deflections per game. Comparatively, last year's Thunder forced 21.4. What's even more impressive is how the Raptors have grown in this area over last year's roster, who forced just 17.9 deflections per game. Okay, huge caveat here. I don't consider this Raptors team to be a finals contender right now. They have several players on the roster who don't quite fit the team's identity and have been losing some games that talent-wise they should have won. Realistically, they're a few pieces away from contending right now, so please don't take my comparison of playstyle as me saying the Raptors are better than those two teams. They're on the right track, but it is still early in the process. With that said, the Raptors have been targeting a specific player archetype to help them take that next step. And if I had to describe that player type in one word, I'd say dogs.
I don't speak the same language no more, but I'm trying to get back to them. Sure, the blinds like the door, trying to restore. What the fuck had happened then?
The Raptors' affinity for this archetype arguably started when they drafted two-way force Scottie Barnes, but it took a few years to fully embrace it. In the 2024 draft, the Raptors selected 4 players and signed one undrafted guy, most of which lean defense first, and 3 of those players have carved out roles in Coach Darko's rotation by doing the dirty work. In the 2025 draft, the Raptors doubled down on this strategy by selecting Colin Roy-Boyles and Elijah Martin, who are both unequivocally dogs. CMB and Elijah rank 2nd and 4th among rookies in deflections per 36, and the Raptors currently have 11 players averaging over 3 deflections per 36 minutes. That's 4 more than the Oklahoma City Thunder, and 6 of those players were drafted or signed in the last 2 seasons. This illustrates the Raptors' shift towards that new defensive identity that embraces chaos and forces opponents to make mistakes, which is directly taking a page from the Thunder's playbook. And what I find most impressive about this is that the Raptors are doing this with significantly less defensive talent than the Thunder have. And with the majority of their disruptive defenders being under 25 years old, I expect this controlled chaos to only get better. So essentially, the Raptors are mimicking the Pacers' offense and recreating their own version of the Thunder's defense, and it is resulting in a lot of team success. At the time of the filming of this video, the Raptors are 1 game out of second place in the East, despite missing multiple starters for most of the season. But there's one more similarity I want to point out about this year's Raptors team and last year's finals opponents, and it comes back to the star players I highlighted. Okay, before you freak out, I'm not saying that Scottie Barnes and Brandon Ingram are Tyrese Halliburton and SGA. Relax. When you consider Halliburton's strengths as a playmaker and Shea's strengths as a bucket getter, you can see how the Raptors combining a playmaker like Scottie and a bucket getter like Ingram is a further attempt at emulating both of these teams' identities at the same time. Now, how far that strategy will take them remains to be seen. After years of trial and error, the Raptors' identity is finally starting to take shape, and it's very much the best of both worlds of last year's finals opponents. The prioritizing of tenacious two-way dogs, headlined by 2 all-star level players, has allowed the Raptors to successfully climb back into relevance. The question now is whether this can result in any long-term success for the Toronto Raptors, or if they're doomed to join a long list of failed gimmick teams. Either way, the Raptors know who they are now, and that's half the battle. Jameson battle. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. It helps me out a ton. You can follow me anywhere at RaptorsShaq, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.